Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. And Jen Klein, thank you for the introduction and mostly for the work that you do every day tirelessly as the director of our Gender Policy Council. And to the members of Congress, members of our administration, business leaders, community leaders, and equal pay advocates who are here with us virtually and in person, thank you for your leadership, for your partnership, and for your commitment to action every day. So I'll begin with a simple truth. Our economy just has not been working as it should for the women of our nation. Across industries, women are less likely to be hired than equally qualified men. They are paid less and promoted slower for doing similar work. Women are routinely shut out of good jobs in high-paying industries, such as science and technology, construction and truck driving, in part because our society tells women that some industries are just not for them. And as study after study has shown, women are expected to shoulder an unequal share of unpaid caregiving responsibilities. When families cannot afford or cannot find caregiving, such as childcare, elder care, or home care, it often falls on women to fill the gaps, whether that means going part-time or leaving the workforce entirely, or working full-time at a paid job and full-time performing unpaid caregiving. And over the past 2 years, the pandemic has only deepened these inequities as caregiving has become more expensive and more difficult to find. And here's how it all adds up. Today, on average, working women who are working full-time, year-round, make just 83 cents for every dollar that a man makes. And for many women of color, the gap is even wider. Over a 40-year career, a woman will lose out on about $400,000. For Black women, Latina women, Native American women, that loss in wages is closer to $1 million. And of course, that is money that a woman could use to pay off her student loan debt, or put a down payment on a house, or pay a mortgage, or invest in a small business, or save for retirement. As one must recognize, lower wages mean working women have less money to save today, and lower wages mean they receive lower Social Security benefits in their senior years. For so many women, the gender wage gap acts as a virtual tax, making it so much more difficult to pay the bills and invest in their future. It can also have a negative impact on their productivity, job satisfaction, and retention. And by extension, it can have a negative impact on individual businesses and on our economy as a whole. As the business leaders here today will tell us, closing the gender wage gap, well, it's not just a moral issue, it's also a business one. If we are going to continue to grow our economy and to be competitive and lead the world in the 21st century, we simply cannot afford to leave half of our workforce behind. To build an economy that works for all of us, we must build an economy that works for women. That is one of our administration's central missions, and that has been a central mission of mine for quite some time. In fact, when I served in the United States Senate, I introduced what we named the Domestic Workers Bill of Rights Act to ensure that domestic workers, 90% of whom are women, they are paid fairly and that their rights are protected. And with Senator Patty Murray of Washington and Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, I co-sponsored the Paycheck Fairness Act to make it easier for employees to bring equal pay claims against their employers. And over the past year, our administration has taken important action to address the gender wage gap. We passed the American Rescue Plan, which provided immediate relief to millions of women who were severely impacted by the pandemic. We passed the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, which is creating good paying, good union jobs, including for many women in industries where they are underrepresented, such as transportation, clean energy, and construction. Today, we are taking additional steps to help increase pay equity across our nation. One factor that contributes to pay inequity is the common practice of requiring job applicants to share their salary history. Now think about that. Why does that matter? Well, in effect, it's allowing how much an employee was paid in the past to impact how much they will be paid in the future. So think about that. For many women, this practice can mean that inequitable pay from a previous job will follow them to the current job, and so on and so on. So our administration is committed to eliminating discriminatory pay practices that inhibit the economy, efficiency, and effectiveness of the federal government. And that's why today our Office of Personnel Management will begin work to address the use of salary history in the hiring and pay-setting process for federal employees. And today, the President, Joe Biden, will sign an executive order that directs the Federal Acquisition Regulatory Council to consider limiting the use of salary history in employment decisions by federal contractors. In addition, today, our Department of Labor will direct federal contractors to strengthen pay audits. Pay audits help organizations determine whether they are paying all their employees equitably, and if they are not, give them data to help correct that inequity. The President and I firmly believe that all companies should conduct these audits, and where appropriate, should be transparent about the results. By the way, I think it's always appropriate to be transparent about the results, because pay transparency creates accountability. And accountability, well, that drives progress. Our administration cannot bridge the wage gap alone. It will truly take all of us working together. And that is why we are gathered here today at this summit. We can build a more fair, more efficient, and more equitable economy. As I said and truly believe, an economy that works for women and for everyone. That's how it goes. An economy that works for women works for everyone. And so together we will continue to do this good work. I thank you all the leaders who are here, and let us continue with this important work until we truly reach a place where all workers and all people are treated fairly. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank everyone here today who is sharing your experience. It's a true honor to be at this event. I want to give a special shout out to our incredible Vice President, Kamala Harris. She's certainly an inspiration to all women, young women all over this country. I'll tell you a quick story. We were on a trip last week, and there was a young woman, 10-year-old young girl, sitting in the front row. And when the Vice President got on the stage, her eyes lit up. And afterwards, I went over to her and I said, "How you doing?" She said, "I'm good." And she said to me, "I want to meet the Vice President." I said, "Don't worry, we're going to make it happen." And she is an inspiration for young girls all across America, young women all across America, for women all across America and all across this country. So I want to thank you, Madam Vice President. I also want to thank Jennifer Klein for her great work. I know Jennifer's running around here organizing. Thank you, Jennifer, for the amazing work you do. And it would be remiss not to give a shout out to some of the members of the U.S. national soccer players that are here with us today. You are an inspiration on the field. You make our country proud. But more importantly, you have been a huge inspiration off the field, fighting for equality for women all across this country and all across this globe. So I want to thank you for what you do and who you're standing up for. Truly are an inspiration. I also just want to, my parents were immigrants from Ireland. My mother came to America from Ireland when she was 17 years old. She came here to do she came actually to make some money to send back home. She did domestic work. I owe so much to her, to my mom, who I am today. And I think about how hard she worked when we talk about these issues. When I talk about women and women of color and immigrants, I think of my mother because she was an immigrant. And she came here at a very young age and had nothing. She had her aunt was here. And I think about making sure that in my role, whether it's my role as Secretary of Labor right now, my previous role as Mayor of Boston, or my role before that as a union person or a state legislator, it's important for us to keep the fight up. In my role today, Secretary of Labor at the Department of Labor, I'm very honored and lucky to have so many dedicated people working with me every day, and we're committed to gender equity. That work is led by our Women's Bureau, and our commitment to equity shapes everything that we do. So Equal Pay Day is an important day for us. It's not only a measure of the gender pay gap, it's a measure of the work we must do to close the gap. I was at an event earlier today with Speaker Pelosi, and she was saying before she got on the stage, how wonderful it would be if she didn't have to do these events anymore, that if you can imagine women actually get paid the same as men, it would really be earth-shattering, something like that, she said. And she's absolutely right. She's absolutely right in what her words were. For too long, our economy has rested too much on unpaid or underpaid women, let women do the work in our country, especially women of color. And that's not right. It's not good for our country, and it has to change, and it's time to change. Today, we published a report, the Department of Labor, the Women's Bureau, we published a report. It's called Bearing the Cost, How Overrepresentation is Undervalued, Roles Hurt Women During the Pandemic. It's not just about the pandemic, but it's about low pay. It's about limited opportunities that left women vulnerable during the pandemic. And obviously, we can look at this report and go back 200 years and pretty much come to the same conclusion, and continue to leave women vulnerable, especially women of color. This injustice has been created over many decades in our country. But thanks to the leadership today of the President and the Vice President, we're addressing this issue head on and right now. We're building a historic worker-centered recovery, and we're determined to use this moment to provide women the opportunity, the wages, and the equality and equity that they deserve. At the Department of Labor this year, we launched the Good Jobs Initiative. It's something that we created. This goal is to improve job quality and job equity across the economy and also across all of our different departments here in the federal government. It means opening up good jobs to all workers, so that investing in career pathways for women, like apprenticeships that lead to good jobs, good union jobs, union infrastructure jobs that we're creating right now here in the United States. It means creating good jobs in every industry, whether you work in childcare, retail, restaurants, teaching, or professional soccer players. You deserve fair wages, paid leave, and access to childcare, safety, respect, and dignity in your job. We can start with the workers here in the federal government who work for our federal government. Last year, the president raised the minimum wage for federal contractors to $15 an hour. It might sound crazy that we had workers working for the federal government that were being paid $6 and $7, $8 an hour. We have implemented that order. We have raised overpay for over 300,000 workers who are disproportionately women and people of color. In addition, today, our Office of Federal Contract Compliance Program issued a directive to strengthen pay equity audits conducted by federal contractors. What that means is when the contracts go out, we look at the audits to see if the contracts actually made it to the pockets they're supposed to and do the backup we're supposed to have. We're also proud to play a role in pay equity and pay transparency executive order the Vice President announced a few minutes ago. Ultimately, our goal is and needs to empower women in the economy. One of the most proven ways to get power is to join a union. And that's how I got my opportunity along with millions of others. I also spoke this morning over at the Capitol Hill, and we had a woman who was a sheet metal worker for 25 years, and she stood at the podium and she talked about working in the field. And she gets paid exactly the same as her male counterpart doing exactly the same work, because the collective bargaining agreement says that. The bargaining agreement doesn't say, well, men get paid more than women. It says everyone gets paid equally across the board. And I had that opportunity to see it up close in person. And the fact is that women and workers of color in unions earn better and more equal wages than their non-union counterparts. The pay gaps are smaller, and the workplace is safer, with less discrimination and harassment. And we still have work to do there, too. I'm not saying we don't have work to do there. We absolutely do. I am honored to serve with the Vice President as her Vice Chair of the White House Task Force on Worker Empowerment and Organizing. We want to make sure that all workers know they have the right to join a union. When I think about the impacts you can have, when I think about the impacts you ladies had, I think about workers like I met Leslie Cotton in Portland, Oregon. Leslie was living with her elderly dad, helping care for her disabled brother. I met her at an event when I was in Oregon a few months ago, and she was barely getting by in her low-income job, and she talked about it. She found a better opportunity in a pre-apprentice program, which is called Oregon Tradeswomen. And this is a tradeswoman group into the building trades that allowed Leslie the chance to get into the building trades and funded in partnership with the Department of Labor. She's now a union plumber in a middle-class job with good wages, good health, and a future pension. That's what we need to strive for. That's what we need to continue to fight for every single day. The bottom line is this administration doesn't just talk about gender equity and equal pay. You can see it in the policies that the president and the vice president rolled out. You can see it in the infrastructure law. You can see it in the bills that we filed. You can see it in the executive orders they're filed. You can see it all across the agency. You can see it when the president and vice president have us all in as cabinet members in a meeting demanding to us that we do this work, that we carry this work out. We have to finish the job. We can't talk about it anymore. The talking is done. We are taking action every single day to advance fairness and justice in our economy, and will not stop fighting until the pay gap is closed. Equal Pay Day is January 1st every single year. It is March 15th, 2022. At some point, we need to stop having these conversations, and people need to react to the stories you're hearing. So again, thank you very much. And again, to the soccer team, you guys are awesome. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Karen Nahuja, Director of the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. Income inequality impacts every woman and every family, and also has a larger economic cost to our country. But closing the pay gap is more than just economic progress or fairness. It's a moral imperative. These gaps are an affront to our values as a nation and go against the notion that every worker's contribution to this country's social and economic progress is equally valued, no matter their gender or background. I speak from personal experience, leading an Asian American women's organization that fought for equal pay for Asian American and Pacific Islander women, many of whom, especially Southeast Asian, Filipino, and Pacific Islander, are concentrated in domestic and caregiver roles. The federal government can and must lead by example and be a model employer. The gender pay gap for federal employees is just below 6% and shrinking, compared to 17% nationwide. Any gap is unacceptable, but we're headed in the right direction. For the second straight year, there is no gender pay gap in the government's senior executive service, the most senior career positions in government. We are proud of that fact, and we are driven to make progress in other key ways. For instance, by increasing the number of women SES overall from 38%, and ensuring the program truly draws from the full diversity of the American people. In fact, in 2021, more than half of individuals hired into our senior executive service were women, so we're on the right track. The federal pay system is more transparent than other systems and includes more information in its job announcements, like salary ranges. It also has narrower, defined pay ranges for starting salaries. All of these factors advance pay equity and transparency. We know there is still more work to be done. The federal pay gap has been built up over decades, and it will take time to eliminate. OPM is proud to work with our partners across the Biden-Harris administration to advance equity and close the pay gap once and for all. We're collaborating with agencies to evaluate HR practices. We're implementing pay discrimination prevention tools in line with President Biden's executive order to promote diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in the federal workforce. And in the coming year, we're planning to propose changes to our regulations that address the use of prior salary history in the hiring and pay setting process. I'm humbled to have my own place in this progress as the first Asian American woman, the first South Asian woman to lead OPM. And I'm proud to stand with you all today as we forge a path for more female leaders to rise and receive every dime they earn in the workplace.
Hello, my name is Aileen Rizzo, and I'm from Fresno, California. Like our amazing First Lady, Joe Biden, education is close to my heart. Teaching is my passion. I've been working in mathematics education for 25 years at all levels, from preschool to the university. As the first in my family to go to college, education for me was a dream come true. In 2012, 16 years into my career, I was a math consultant for the County Office of Education. I found out about pay disparity with a newly hired male that amounted to approximately $13,000. I had more experience, more education, and more seniority than the new hire. So I went to Human Resources and was informed that my salary was based exclusively on prior pay. When I asked the HR administrator about the logic in this, she said, "It's the way we've always done it." When I came home after my meeting, my daughters ran into my arms like they did every day. And it dawned on me for the first time that one day they would enter the workforce. How would the workplace treat them if I did nothing? What the county office deemed as a neutral policy made the wrong assumption. It assumed that we all come from equal paths and have equal histories and equal standing. However, if you can pay a woman less because she's making less, then you perpetuate a wage gap far into the future. So I filed a lawsuit that began a journey I could not even imagine. But I also became an advocate. My family and I traveled the 3-hour trip about a dozen times so that I could testify before the California legislature and could lobby for stronger equal pay laws. When my youngest was 9 months old, I held her on stage at the Rosie Riveter Museum as the governor signed one of the strongest equal pay laws in the nation. And after 8 long years of navigating the court system and sacrificing both financially and emotionally, on July 2nd, 2020, the US Supreme Court declined to hear a challenge to the Ninth Circuit's unanimous decision in my favor. It is now case law in all states within the Ninth District that the use of prior salary cannot justify a wage differential between employees. My case is over, and the victorious ending is one I hope we all share. But the pursuit of justice continues. It takes all of us standing together, and every day we prove that the world is malleable, that change is possible. And I look forward to the day when we don't recognize Equal Pay Day. But this is not about me. I stand in place for the countless women who this has happened to. I know what it feels like to sit next to a man that takes more money home to his family when you do the exact same job. It's demeaning, it's heartbreaking, because if a woman can't be equal in the workplace, how can she be equal anywhere else? We can close the wage gap. It will take time, effort, and purposeful actions. I am grateful for what President Biden and his administration is doing to focus on the wage gap. I hope the light we shine on this issue today is so bright, it cannot be ignored. There are no words to express just what an honor this is for me to share my story and to speak to the issue of equal pay. You have my commitment to continue advocacy work on behalf of the economic security of women and their families. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rocio Sáenz, International Executive Vice President of SEIU. On Equal Pay Day, I want to honor our essential women workers. Throughout the pandemic, women have served on the front lines. They reported for duty in childcare centers, neighbors' homes, nursing home, and hospital. These caregivers make all other work possible. They kept our economy going when everything else was shut down, often having to pay for their own personal protective equipment. And despite being at greater risk of dying from COVID, they didn't stop showing up to work. So when we talk about the gender pay gap, let's make sure we are talking about all women, including Black, Latina, Asian Pacific Islander, immigrant, Indigenous women in essential jobs. Cents add up to dollars, and gender and racial pay gaps are up to hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. Every worker deserves to be respected, protected, and paid regardless of what they do for a living.
Hi, I'm Billie Jean King, And I wish I could be with you in person today to discuss the important issue of pay equity on Equal Pay Day. My dream is that we celebrate Equal Pay Day every year on January 1, and women and men are paid equally. But that will most likely not happen in my lifetime, but it can happen in yours if we work together and if we stand together. It's now been almost 50 years since I defeated Bobby Riggs in the Battle of Sexes tennis match. Yet women in the U.S. who work full-time year-round are typically paid only 83 cents for every dollar paid to their male counterparts, with women of color making even less. And you can't truly understand inclusion until you have been excluded. We have narrowed the pay gap since 1973, but it is still not equal. That's why I'm here today supporting the White House Equal Pay Day Summit to remind us that without equal economic opportunity, true gender equality will remain out of reach for all of us. We have real work to do in the fight for women's rights and economic justice, and I'm grateful to partner with the White House to make Equal Pay Day a reality for all.